Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is preparing herself for the debate of a lifetime, which involves Star Trek. So let me give you some details, Ben. Back in 1996, way back when, Star Trek Voyager aired a controversial episode titled Tuvix, right? So, of course, in this episode, for those who are not familiar with this, Tuvok, played by Tim Russ, Neelix, played by Ethan Phillips, were merged. Basically, they went into a transporter. They had a transporter accident, and two people became one person with a completely different personality, a brand new life form, right? Brand new person. The thing is that originally, okay, like the crew, they accepted Tuvix, even though they missed their companions, right? But the captain was not as accepting of Tuvix, and eventually ordered that they be separated once the doctor figured out how to do it. And so he did not want to be separated because that would mean that Tuvix would die.
Right.
But the two former crew members would be restored. You would have Tuvok and Neelix back in their original form. So what's interesting about this is that, again, it's a very controversial episode because it makes you think about the moral choices, whether or not you separate this person to restore, you essentially kill this person to restore two other people that you knew, even though this person wanted to live, did not want to die.
Right.
And so, you can understand, like I said, the controversy. AOC wants to debate this in maybe one of her next streams, which are already incredibly popular, as you might have watched that Game of Among Us, which I certainly did. And so she actually got the attention of both Tim Russ, who played Tuvok, and Kate Mulgrew, who played Captain Janeway, respectively. Yeah. So I guess before we get into what we think about the moral decision, here's what both of them had to say. Mulgrew stands by her character's decision by saying, willing to hear the crew's thoughts as always. However, shouldn't Tuvok and Neelix have the biggest say? Oh, wait, they couldn't. I stand by my decision to restore them to their lives. And then specifically telling AOC, rewatch and report back, and congratulations on your win. So this happened right after the election. Tim Russ, by the way, if you don't follow Tim Russ on Twitter, you probably should. He's got some hot political takes. Gotta love that. I certainly do. Here's what he said. Stay in the fight, AOC. We're watching. Congrats on your congressional win. We're close to unseating the tyrant. And also said, thank you, Kate. I appreciate that. And thank you for the positive message. AOC, live long and prosper. So that is an interesting response to it. Janeway, of course, staying with her original position of separating the two. I don't know. What do you think about this?
So before we even talk about the debate of it, I think it is so effing cool, man. Like, I know these people aren't these characters in real life, obviously.
Of course.
But, man, it's love. It is, and it's love centered around a hopeful future, right? That's what Star Trek stands for. Star Trek isn't about it isn't about personalities, or cultural personalities. It's about a vision of the future that we all can be drawn to. And that's what but what's dope about it is that, for the most part, outside of William Shatner, most of these characters actually most of the actors embody that hopefulness for the future. This is why you can get the entire staff of Star Trek Picard and Star Trek Discovery to identify and just outright say, hey, whatever it's worth, we need to get rid of Donald Trump. That's because they understand the score. And so just to have Kate Mulgrew and Tim Russ just show love like this is just a beautiful thing, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that they've gotten involved, and I like how they congratulated AOC on her win and are progressive. I remember back in 2016 where you had an entire group trek against Trump, and so you had a lot of Star Trek alum that are saying, no, we don't agree with the hate and division. We don't agree with the regression that we're going to get under somebody like Donald Trump. We're going to go forward. And so I like that. I like that message. And, you know, before we get into, of course, what we think about that stuff, I do have to note that Star Trek's always been fairly progressive, and they've always tackled these kind of issues, and really put these sort of moral issues. I mean, look, there's another episode of Voyager where the Doctor, you know, was kidnapped, right, and taken to a planet where you had a hospital system set up that only keeps, you know the one, where it only allows the wealthy, the people who give the most to society, to get the health care that they need so that they don't die. And not only that, but they have a special thing where it makes those people live longer. Yeah. And so there's inequities in care based on a meritocratic society. And so it really kind of makes you think of the meta you know, narratives of, and you know, these meta narratives make you think of what our society is and what we do. You know, it's really kind of a futuristic lens of how we can look at our own society.
You know what Star Trek ultimately helped me come to terms with was that even in our utopia, now this is a little darker than what you're saying, right? Mm-hmm. But even in our dreams of utopia, we still acknowledge the fact that there will be struggle. Because for most of us, Star Trek represents somewhat of a utopia, but there's still conflict. There's still human, the human dilemma. There's still war. There's still villains. There's still things that we have to fight externally as well as internally. And I think that is something that we have to really start promoting as progressives, that, you know, even in our dreams of making society better, we realize there's still going to be things that we have to fight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, again, there's always going to be new things, new frontiers, so to speak, of, you know, the human element that we need to explore and talk about and figure out, you know, where we're going to be as a society. Yeah. And so on the idea of Tuvix, I am super torn. OK, so on the one thing, you've got these two crew members that did not want to be fused into one person. They wanted to be their own people, right?
Absolutely. Especially Tuvok.
Absolutely. So they didn't want to be fused into that person. They wanted to live their own lives. Yes. But so did Tuvix as well. As a new person, also didn't want to die. So it's really, I mean, it's really hard to make the distinction and hard to make that decision of whether or not you would separate them, you know, to get these two people back that you do love and care about, you know, that are essentially, because I know part of the theme about Voyager is also how they came together as a family to survive their long journey in the Delta Quadrant alone. And so you lose two of these family members to gain someone that, you know, generally the crew liked. You know, we're like, okay, we accept you, you know, we miss our friends, but we accept you, you know. But if you have an opportunity to get them back, what you do?
I think the question is, does one violation validate another or preclude or justify? There's so many ways of looking at it, whose violation came first. Tuvok and Neelix's violation happened first. Right. And do they not have the right to be restored to justice? Even if, I mean, what's the cost? The cost is the violation of this new creature, right? And so that's never easy. That's not an open and shut case. That's why it's such a controversial episode. But in order to recognize the rights of Tuvix, you have to ignore the rights of Tuvok and Neelix. And so there is no easy answer to it. But for me, it's still the question of, you have two violations that are on the table. And how do you prioritize it? I mean, well, Captain Janeway did. And I think we are, you know, for the most part, we're pretty glad she did, because I don't think any of us honestly wanted Tuvix to replace them for the rest of the season, for the rest of the series.
True. And look, Janeway gets a lot of shit for making the hard decisions. But and that's one of the hardest decisions that you could make, to kill a sentient being, essentially.
I'm curious, what was, I didn't even realize this was going on. What was AOC's position?
AOC hasn't, she said that it's deep and that she will rewatch and come back and make a decision. But she tends, I think, to go more in the direction of Janeway, but I'm not 100% on that. So we would have to see this debate play out, which I hope it does. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I absolutely hope it does too, man.
And this episode itself also like makes me think of another one, another like conundrum, right? Where an Enterprise, they cloned a crew member who was grievously injured. They cloned him, and then we're going to harvest this fully autonomous clone for organs. And so that sets up an even more of a like horrible moral. Yeah. Now, I think there was a catch on that. The clone would eventually destabilize, perhaps. They might have found that out later. I'm not, 100% on that. But it was still that moral choice. And like, do you raise this, clone that is fully sentient and aware of who he is and what he is not to save the life of the original?
Have you read or watched the movie version of, I can't think of the author's name, Never Let Me Go?
I have not. I have not heard of that.
It is a brilliant book. I think it won like I don't know if it won the Nobel Prize, but I know he has won the Nobel Prize in literature. It is a book about harvesting organs from clones of people and an entire society that's built off of that. And it really, instead of dealing with the societal level conundrum, they deal with the emotional trauma of being one of those clones.
Right.
It's really good.
That sounds really interesting and pretty good. So I will have to look into that. I don't know. Again, this is a really difficult decision, but when it comes to just to go back to like Vulcan logic, right? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one.
Yeah.
That's why I would probably go with, and what you said about, the first wrongs being on Tuvok and Neelix, I would probably back, Janeway's decision to separate them. I mean,
yeah, I think
it's not an easy situation though.
I would be on your side as well. And it's, listen, this is Kasao Ishiguro is the author.
Okay.
But this is the humanity and the human dilemma is not easy.
Nope.
And it is terrible at times. And making the right decision is oftentimes going to be looked at as an immoral decision. And this isn't to excuse crimes of war criminals. No,
right.
It's to say that even in our fiction, we come up against these conundrums that really have us going back and forth, questioning our own morality. And I honestly think that's the beauty of humanity. The fact that we can make a decision that we think is right, but everyone questions our humanity in it. And I mean, what better way to understand the human dilemma?
If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.